Let's talk about the income tax fight in the state. It took 3 years or thereabouts for Byrne to get the income tax that he wanted once he was in office. Were you involved in that fight? Were you for or against?
I was gone by the time that the final version passed, but he was floating versions around earlier on. And I had some difficulties with some of the things that were talked about at the early years, particularly the homestead provisions. I represented the city of Camden. Obviously, even at that point, was a fairly depressed area. And I was looking for more benefits to come with this whole package for working class, poor people. But ultimately, after I left and went to Congress, the bill was modified and was ultimately passed.
You're talking about the homestead rebate that was instituted
That's right.
with the income tax.
Yes.
And you're saying that didn't appeal to you because your constituency was fewer homeowners?
Well, there were fewer people paying taxes. So, I mean, I wanted to have more benefits come from this system to go to low-income people, working-class people. I also had some questions, and this was probably after I left, about school funding formulas and things of that sort, which are all tied in together.
Do you recall whether when it finally was in its final throes of being passed and the Supreme Court got involved, whether you were on board with it or still raising concerns about it?
No, actually, the school funding portion was the part that was really driving me. I mean, the income tax obviously provides the revenues. I just wanted to make sure the revenues were going to school districts, the so-called Abbott districts now, because the city of Camden had some fairly serious problems, which even to this day they still have, in funding quality education for all of the children.
The people who worked the closest with Brendan Byrne to get that income tax passed regard it as a kind of heroic effort. How do you regard it? Do you see it that way, or as something that was simply inevitable, or neither?
Yeah. Well, I mean, revenues are necessary. Obviously, the big ideological fight as to whether you want more revenues, and it goes to the question of what you expect out of government. If you don't expect a whole lot out of government, you don't need a lot of revenues. On the other hand, if you expect government to do certain things that no one else is going to do, where we talk a lot about privatizing, there are some functions that you're not going to privatize because there's no money to be made, so the private sector would not be involved with that. Quality education is something that you really have to have government presence in. And public health, another area you have to have a public sector presence in. And if you have the presence, you need the revenues. So I almost regard it as inevitable that you're going to have a revenue base that is hopefully equitable. And if it's going to be equitable, you're going to have a graduated, progressive tax system. An income tax system is an aspect of that.